Good evening, everyone. Hello, my name is Caroline Kohles, and I am the Director of Health and Wellness at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan and Program Coordinator for the Northwell Health's Edmund J. Safra Parkinson's Wellness Program here at the JCC. Welcome to Broadway's Best for Parkinson's. This program is supported by a community grant from the Parkinson's Foundation. I want to start by thanking both the Parkinson's Foundation as well as all our guests for sharing their time and talents. Our show is about using theater and improvisation for managing Parkinson's. We are going to hear from Dr. Alessandro Di Rocco, the Director of Movement Disorders at Northwell Health and the medical advisor to our program. Broadway musical director, actor, teacher, and author David Loud is back on the show, and we have a pre-recorded interview with David and his dear friend, four-time Tony Award winner Boyd Gaines. Dan Dumshaw and Rosemary Morrison from Tightrope Impro Theatre are here to share information about their work and about a research study on improvisation and PD. Popular PD podcast host and co-founder of PD Avengers, Larry Gifford is here. Larry, along with Dan and Rosemary, are going to give us a live demonstration of improv on the show. An actor, educator, and co-founder of Stop PD Theater, Alex Montaldo, will give us a boxing demonstration and talk about using theater games, techniques, and practices to help people with PD. And that's not all. Be sure to stay till the end of the show to meet actress Laura Darnell, who will be singing for us a beautiful Sondheim song. Her voice is like an angel. And now I want to introduce you to someone who's on our team and is a boxing instructor, an actor. He is a man who wears many, many hats. Alex Montaldo, an actor, a boxer. Alex and his wife, the neuroscientist, Dr. Roberta. Oh, you have to tell me, Alex, how do I say her last name? It's so beautiful. Morangia created Stop PD, a non-for-profit dedicated to improving the quality of life for people living with PD through the arts and through exercise. Alex teaches our weekly Boxing for PD class here at the JCC, and he created Stop PD Theater program as well. Alex, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure. And I'm very happy to be part of your team because it's a great thing you do. And especially because now we can do hybrid and it helps a lot. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, and I love that you have this mutual love of movement and theater. I mean, I do too. I was a former dancer and I love to exercise. I teach the NIA for PD class here at the JCC, and that's theatrical too. So how did you, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that there were a lot of skills that actors use all the time that could be helpful to people with PD. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, it's the same. If you think about acting as trying to recreate some form of heightened version of reality, right? Mm-hmm. We do the same things that we all do on a daily basis. We have to talk and listen. So communicating efficiently is a big part of it. You have to stay focused if you're doing something, and you have to be able to use the space and have a sense of yourself within the space. So those things together, I mean, when it comes to acting per se, it's a different situation. I want to make sure that it's clear that what we do with our Parkinson's people is not trying to become actors, right? It's really not. It's always just like boxing, a way to learn or relearn skills that you can actually use in your day-to-day life and activities. And by that, I mean, have a better sense of your own body, like a proprioceptive perception of yourself in space, and being able to communicate really through vocal exercises and other kinds of stuff like improv, which is not something we do specifically, but it's part of it too.
And you said that some of the silly warm-ups and skills that help improve movement, memory, and vocalization and breathing, you incorporated into your classes. What gave you the inspiration to do that?
So the thing is, sometimes I'm not a teacher by nature at all. I'm more of I like to learn. I don't really know how to teach normally, but I realize that some of the things that to me as an actor are not even much of part of what I do, and I don't even quite like doing, can be very useful for people with Parkinson's. Because, like, even theater games, to me, like, I mean, we're all different, right? But for me, the word theater doesn't go with games ever.
But wait a second, I'm going to disagree with you. Theater is about playing. Come
I
on.
know, but like, I mean, I'm a nut job. We know that. But it's I think it's a very good thing that we as teachers have to learn to get past our limitations, right? So if something sounds or feels silly to me, it doesn't mean it's not useful. And that was a big part of the process when I created all the drills and skills and everything. And actually, when we teamed up with NYU Drama Therapy Department, that helped me too, because they have more of a group-oriented approach to drama therapy, and that helped me get a better sense of what that is and how it can be used. So we created different drills, and we actually managed to write a play written just by the participants to the program, and they performed it and recorded it. And so right now we're working on creating like the next step and the next step, and
Awesome.
it's really,
It's
really,
awesome.
really
Can you give us a little demonstration? Then I want to talk to you about actually the play that you created, but can you give us a little demonstration of your boxing class? Because I've been in it and it's great. Do you want me to stay on, or you want the?
No, stay on. That's
okay.
Fine. So the main point for me is that whatever we do in life, it's all physical. There's nothing there is not. Like everything, even the way you feel is physical, right? You feel sad, you feel angry, it's just your body activated in your brain and giving an interpretation of what's going on. So, and that goes for acting as well, right? See, if I give you a boxing drill, right, and I just tell you to hold your hands up like this, that and get into what you would call a fight stance, right? Which is something like this, okay? First of all, this requires a lot of control, right? And even just by doing this and trying to breathe correctly, which is in through your nose, out through your mouth, will help you, one, get more grounded and centered, and two, relax into it. And then if you even just do like a punch, you see how when I step forward, it's always my breathing that supports that. And you go back. And if you do two punches, you go and go back and go back. And then you move in different planes of motion, right? So you can do the same thing, but step sideways and then add the punches and go back. Step sideways, back, back. Okay, and then you can go forward, 1, 2, back, sideways, 1, 2, back. And now you're creating a pattern, which is how we learn, right? That's how we learn how to read. We learn how to speak when we were children. And luckily, our brains are wired to do that. So that's what we tap into.
And I am going to say that teachers, for me, what they do is break down process, and they actually scaffold. And you did that in such a beautiful way. Can you talk for a moment about how teaching boxing led to creating a production of Clifford Odets' play Golden Boy? And the cast included some artists who were living with PD, including the late director Aaron Latham and the actor educator Ron Shelter. How was it for you as an actor to be on stage with actors who were living with PD? And did it require a certain amount of improvisation on your part? Okay,
so actually, it was very, very interesting for me, and very different. I wasn't expecting it to be like that. I was expecting it to be a little more challenging and requiring me to adapt more than I thought. First of all, we came up with the idea because Aaron and I struck up friendship real quick because we had so many things in common, and we met in the gym, right, doing boxing and all that, and we thought, why don't we do a play? And what better than a boxing play, which is not really a boxing play, it's a play about uh, an outcast, really, who becomes a boxer because he wants to be famous and recognized and all that. But he's really he plays the violin as well, and that's how he throws his hands.
Don't we have some slides?
I think we do. I think we
Awesome.
do.
Sam, can you put those up for us? And you can tell us, what are we seeing here?
And that's Ron Shetler, who played my dad. And I mean, I'm really being serious when I tell you that he's probably, well, definitely one of the best actors that I've worked with, and one of the easiest ones to work with.
And does he have PD?
He has Parkinson's, yes. He has Parkinson's, and actually, by observing him, I came up with many ideas about what to do for other patients, because for some reason, and I know, I mean, it's obviously he's a professional actor, he's done it all his life, right? So the moment he stepped on stage, everything became a little more fluid. His speech was much more, was clearer and louder. His movements were so much more fluid.
And here's the full cast, right?
Yeah, that was a big cast.
We're going to bring, in a moment, we're going to bring on Dr. Alessandro Di Rocco to talk to us about, and here's Leslie Stahl and Erin, she's been on our show, of course. And is that Ron as well?
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. And you.
That was after
that must have been an incredible experience, Alex.
It was very stressful, and I regretted it every step of the way, but afterward, it was really rewarding. Just because, for me as an actor, all I care about normally is, do the best and make it look and sound the best they could. And it did. And Ron and the other actors and crew members with Parkinson's never slowed down the process. Actually, it was the opposite. And seeing Aaron, sorry, I don't want to take up too much time, but seeing Aaron, even when he wasn't doing that well physically, climb up those stairs at 9 p.m. to go to rehearsal with that big smile that he had, I was like, man. And I don't want to sound like corny or anything, because I'm not like that, but that really was something else.
Well, I want to bring Dr. Di Rocco out to actually talk about that, because, and I'll introduce you all to him in a minute. He's had many patients that have been actors or in the performing arts. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him so that you guys have some context. He's the medical director and advisor of the program at the JCC, and he, as he prefers to be called, Alex, he's a dear friend and much loved and world-renowned, respected neurology specialist and system director of neurology, Parkinson's and movement disorders at Northwell Health in New York City. His expertise is in Parkinson's disease and other movement disorders, and he's also a professor of neurology at the Zucker School of Medicine at Hofstra Northwell. And Alex is a dear friend. We've been working together for many years, and we actually went to a film at the JCC where two of your, or at least one of your patients was featured in the film, maybe both of them, and we commented on that. And I wondered that Alex Montaldo was talking about is that when they got into the performance, it seemed that their Parkinson's abated a little bit. Can you talk about why is that?
Yes, thank you, Caroline. First of all, it's great to be here and to be again part of this community and to explore together. I mean, why is it? I don't know if there is kind of any official answer to that, but one way I can think of this, actually there are two ways I can think of this. One is in neurological terms. So just making a little bit of back to a little bit to the biology of the disease. Parkinson's disease is a way to think Parkinson's disease is a disorder of movement and expression that affects sort of the volitional daily part. And there is nothing like sort of a theater and an expression and an acting that bypasses that block. So there is a way in which, and we use that in rehabilitation techniques, in way you can trigger movement in different ways. We have discussed this in relationship to music, in relationship to other modalities, and it's increasingly recognized as a way in rehabilitation, in physical therapy, but not just physical therapy, in all form of rehabilitations, which is much wider concept than physical therapy. We can actually bypass this sort of difficulty moving by channeling the brain into sort of engaging the motor areas through different doors. And certainly the expression, the acting is one way to do this. Another point I want to make is that I think we discussed in relationship to that documentary, which was about a Beckett's production. So it was about theater and expression and art, and the sort of elements of acting, which sort of again requires an engagement, is used as part of, again, the technique of rehabilitation, one specifically called Big and Loud, in which some of the very techniques of expression in theater or in voice expression are used as a way, again, to bypass the block and sort of define movement, enable movement in different ways.
We're going to bring out one of your friends and patients, David Loud, to talk about this very thing. And David, can you, there you go. No, David and Alex, if you could stay with us, because we're going to ask you a question together. I wanted to know, Alex, first of all, let me introduce who David is and give our audience some context. To talk about this more, we're going to have this amazing accomplished man, David Loud, and he has been on the show before, and we just didn't get enough of him. And now the rest of our shows are going to be kind of a little bit about David's story. So please continue to log in and stay with us as we go through the year. He spent his life in theater as one of Broadway's most respected musical directors and vocal arrangers. He has the unique distinction of having originated 3 roles on Broadway as an actor. He began his career in Merrily We Roll Along, followed later by Master Class and Curtains. His extensive musical direction credits on Broadway include The Visit, starring Chita Rivera and Roger Reese, Scott Sparrow Boys, Soundtime on Soundtime, Curtains, Ragtime, A Class Act, Steel Pier, and revivals of Porgy and Bess, She Loves Me, Company, and Sweeney Todd. His book, which I believe, David, was it published in February of 2022?
It came out in March, actually.
Okay, March. His book, Facing the Music, a Broadway memoir, which I've read and I highly recommend to everyone, especially if you love Broadway, because it just really gives you sort of a backstage look at what that life is like. David, welcome to the show. And I guess what I want to ask both of you, because you know each other so well, is why the arts? Alex, why are you so enamored with the arts? You have been exploring them in the last couple of years. You've been pushing the exploration and the importance of arts for people living with PD. But why? Why do you think they play a particular role and importance in neurological functioning?
Well, this is a huge question. So why I love the arts, and I will not give you my personal answer. I think we all love arts, and we all have different ways of arts, and we all our lives is enriched, and we all resonate some way differently to different form of arts. But as in my official role in this discussion as the neurologist, I can tell you that to me has been an epiphany throughout my career to see how art had a way to, again, kind of unlock a certain ways in which expression was no longer flowing as sort of life before Parkinson allowed to. Caroline, you know, for instance, the work we did with with painting, with visual arts, and how visual arts, we studied this. We actually was not just sort of a workshop to
with art therapists,
sort of right. You know, we actually did a study which we published, and we were able to demonstrate that when the brain is engaged in the creative process of making art, the brain in Parkinson is able again to mobilize those areas of the brain that are lagging behind. So in Parkinson, it's not that the brain doesn't function, or obviously doesn't function as efficiently as it should, but all the components are there. It's just a matter of activating in the right way. Medication is one way, but that's still doesn't allow for a lot of the functions to come together. For instance, vision. People with Parkinson, somehow have trouble kind of capturing the whole spatial environment. Well, through what we demonstrated through that study with art is that by the process of creating art and painting, the brain retrained itself. We were actually able to do this through scanning, through brain imaging and connectivity of the brain areas that were coming back together again. The same we did, and this is again another partnership with the JCC, with the Voice Project. In a way, how singing was able to do much more than traditional speech therapy was able to do. And certainly there is much more that we haven't looked at, and we haven't explored that. So that way in which this can really re-engage the brain, as it happens to all of us. We all sort of lifted to another dimension through art. And if this is sort of a way in which we can somehow re-engage the brain, or that parts of the brain in Parkinson which is lagging behind, this is a beautiful and much better way than any medication can possibly do.
Yeah. David, do you feel that way? Do you feel like art, or your art, or singing, or arranging is a better way to kind of access that part of you and make you feel? It sort of reminds me as a dancer when I wake up and I can get into everything warmed up. I just feel like I have access to my body. And how about for you? Do you feel like that happens to you when you practice your craft?
For me, to go a day without making music it's a wasted day, and it's a day that I haven't explored that place in me that is still a little protected from the Parkinson's. And I try to just find something every day that is musical, that is sort of the old me, because it doesn't feel like I'm as compromised as I am in other parts of my life when I'm making music.
That's awesome. And Alex, as a doctor, today our show is about improvisation. As a doctor, do you feel like you're improvising all the time with the medical treatments that you have or don't have? And David, I mean, you guys have worked together so many years. Do you feel like it's an improvisation that you're kind of having to adjust as you go? Alex, you go first.
Well, I think, definition of improvisations, one way to think about this is being creative and to be not dogmatic, and to sort of bypass the obstacle of the obvious when the obvious just doesn't work. So in that respect, yes, working together, it's very humbling to be in my position, sort of it's you know, we sort of in our role as in many ways witnesses, but in other ways, you know, as people to whom we are asked to provide advice, and sometimes there's no formal, no sort of canonical advice that you can give. There's no medication that can do this. On the other hand, there is both common sense and sort of ways to think through. And I can tell you, one thing I learned is, and this came actually to mind when I was listening to David's comment, is that a lot of what I do and we do in our position is to learn from the people that we see. I don't like to use the word patients. The people that, and learn the tricks. You know, I learned about music, I learned about art by, you know, maybe working in New York City, and where a lot of people life and profession is arts. And by witnessing, learning, listening to stories, and then kind of really growing on those stories, and then making those stories advices to the next patient. So sometimes what I tell a patient is something I just learned, or I learned maybe a week later, a month earlier from another patient. Is that improvisation? Maybe it's something different. Maybe it's a different learning process. Maybe the word improvisation wouldn't work that way. But I think that there is that maybe creative element, and which is different, you know, than the creativity of an artist, you know, of someone. But sure, that's the way, you know, in our humble way, we do that.
And David, what do you feel like in terms of your relationship with Dr. Di Rocco? Do you feel
well,
like
what makes Dr. Di Rocco different from other doctors that I've had is that you say to me, you're the expert on your Parkinson's. So you must constantly be improvising in terms of having to take what I tell you about my Parkinson's and synthesize that with what you know about other people's Parkinson's. It feels like a collaboration, not a dictatorship, when I go to you for a checkup.
Beautiful. This is awesome. And David, we're going to see, speaking of collaborations, we have a recording, because recently you and I sat down with your longtime friend, Tony Award-winning actor Boyd Gaines, to talk about their life, your life together on Broadway and in the theater, and living with Parkinson's. And Boyd Gaines holds the unique distinction of being the only actor to win 4 Tonys in 3 different categories. In 1989, as Best Actor, featured role in a play for Wendy Wasserstein's The Heidi Chronicles. In 1994, as Best Actor musical for the revival of She Loves Me, where he and David met. In 2000, as Best Actor, featured role in a musical for Contact. And in 2008, for Best Featured Actor in a musical for the revival of Gypsy. His career has included numerous regional theaters, films, and television productions, and both he and David are currently on the teaching faculty at Manhattan School of Music. We have a little clip here that I'd like to take a look at, Sam, if you can show that for us. It's how their life in the theater has prepared them for a life which now includes Parkinson's. Tonight's our show is about improvisation, and we were talking about how every theater performance, right, and every show is like creating a family, and then you move on. That requires a lot of flexibility. That requires a lot of improvisational skill to just be able to shift gears. Some people, we think about the Queen, she had one job her whole life, right? You guys change cast, change scores, change lyrics, change the script. How has this kind of improvisational lifestyle impacted you as you have moved on and aged in your life?
Well, resilience is a term that you hope applies to yourself. I look at David and see with the challenges that he's had, has been unbelievably resilient. And through some fairly adverse circumstances.
Doing a show, you have to be at your best. As repetitive as they are, you have to be awake at every moment to what is actually happening and responding to what's happening that night and not trying to repeat what you did last night. Musically, acting wise, I think it's true of everybody in the building, really. You try to do the work in the moment, which requires constant improvisation and reaction to what the other actors, what the other musicians, what the stage manager is doing. I mean, it's all a big soup that's alive every single night.
Our show is about improvisation, and living with Parkinson's is an improvisation. There are continuous adjustments and shifts each day. Do you think training in the theater, having to learn, as I was saying, new shows, working with different performers, adjusting to different theaters, has made living with PD any easier?
Rolling with the punches
Mm.
and staying, as David says, in the moment. It's so easy to go, oh, in the future, I'll be better. Or sometimes adversely looking back, it goes, well, in the past, I was better.
Right.
But staying in the here and now and actually hearing, seeing, perceiving other people, which is the basic work that we do in the theater, as David was saying.
The Parkinson's is a constant barrier. It's an obstacle to doing what I know I can do best. When I can smash through the barrier and do what I need to do, that's a great feeling. But sometimes you can't. And so you have to find another way to do it. And it is a constant improvisation because, you know, your days are different and the obstacles are different each day. And what worked yesterday may not work today. Or you may find a new solution that does help you through. Just keep going. It can get so wearing, but you have to just keep battling.
Well, as Beckett says in Godot, I can't go on. I'll go on.
Yes, exactly. And who wants Beckett as their big guide to the daily life? Not me, but he knew what he was talking about.
I just love that clip, David. And Alex, you can come on back. I just think one of the things that and we'll have more, you guys, more interviews with Boyd and David as our shows progress, but I love your humor, David, and your sense of humor. Alex, do you ever get frustrated with the sort of lack of progress that we've made with the medical, progress that we've made? And David was talking about how Parkinson's feels like a barrier sometimes. Do you feel like, oh, I wish we were faster on the medical side? Does that ever feel like a barrier for you?
Well, I think we all feel this, and there is nothing more frustrating than spend year after year, waiting for that next piece of knowledge which will transform this. We know so much about this disease, and one point will happen. One point we'll put the pieces together and something will happen, and it seems so close. Really at a reach, and certainly the sense of urgency that is there for those entire community that is sort of waiting day after day and year after year. And we all sense that frustration, and we all sense that perhaps with and again I may diverge from the theme, but if there were a little bit more dedicated effort and more resources put on this, probably we'll be at a place in which the pieces of the puzzle will be finally joined together. It's not so hard. In my mind, it's really within reach. But yes, it is frustrating.
Well, we're going to interview a PD Avenger and talk about how we can actually get into action on this call. One of our next guests is a PD Avenger. And David, any final thoughts that you had? I mean, you're going to come back in a little bit, but.
No, it's just so great to hear people talking about this and not sweeping it under the rug and not trying to avoid it. There's a tendency when we're diagnosed to pretend that we don't have it. And that was a big step for me to learn how to deal with. And it's just so refreshing to be on a panel like this and actually talk about the things that are making our lives so hard.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons we're doing this show. And I can tell you, working with Dr. Di Rocco for as many years as I have, that's one of the things that he challenges me to do all the time, which is to talk about the push-pull, the things that people aren't talking about, because we need to. And I really appreciate you both coming on the show and being willing to do just that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm going to introduce you now to some fellow improvisers. I think that you're going to enjoy a lot meeting. It's time for a little, what I would say, show and tell. Our next guests, Dan Dumshaw and Rosemary Morrison, are from British Columbia, and they're going to demonstrate for us how improv theater actually works and how they are using it to help those living with PD. So Dan, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
You are the director of Tightrope Impro Theatre, and you've performed and taught theater and improv for over 20 years and have trained professionals in applied improv with the workplace since 2014. As a facilitator with Improv for Business, you've led trainings for teams from Microsoft, Amazon, and other organizations across North America, and you've performed with Vancouver Theatre Sports and been on the faculty of the Improv Comedy Institute.
Yeah, it sounds like so much when you say it all in one breath like that. My goodness, when do I sleep?
Exactly. And it just reminds me that improv has caught on not only in the theater community, but in the business community as well. And welcome to the show, Rosemary. Rosemary is a performer, creator, and wellness program coordinator for Tightrope Impro Theatre. And she fell in love with the world of performance in the 8th grade. Such a pivotal time. When she joined her junior high's first ever improv team. She then became a member of, this is great, you guys, Loose Moose Theater Company and a cast member of Dirty Laundry's Young Company, where she also worked as an associate producer. Rosemary is a student of Simon Fraser University, pursuing her BFA in theater performance and a minor in gender, sexuality, and women's studies. She loves being a part of the Tightrope team and working to share all the benefits of learning improv. Welcome to you both. I guess, Dan, what I'm going to say is improvisation and Parkinson's. Why did you think participating in improvisation classes would be helpful to people living with PD? How did that link happen?
Well, it all comes down to my husband, actually, and it all starts in the home. So I had this whole improv career going where I was performing and teaching improv and bringing it to corporations and organizations. And I met my husband, who is a movement disorder neurologist, and he was watching what I do. And he said, you know, it would be great to try improv for my patients that have Parkinson's disease. So we went to an exercise retreat that was happening here in British Columbia, because as we all know, exercise slows the progression of Parkinson's. But they had this ambitious retreat where these poor participants were going through the gauntlet. Like, it was 5 days of hiking and drumming and boxing and aerobics. And they said, you know, we'll give them one night as a social. Do you think, you know, and they asked Jonathan, my husband, what could we do? And he said, well, I can ask my husband if he'll come and do some improv with them. So we went out together. He was giving a talk on the art of medicating Parkinson's. And then I did an improv workshop for Parkinson's. So it was also take your spouse to work day, because I hadn't heard John speak and he hadn't seen me teach. So I got to hear this fantastic talk. And, you know, further to what Dr. Di Rocco said about the improvisation in treating Parkinson's, John was talking about that co-creation that happens with the patient and the doctor in figuring out what medication is going to work for you.
And then I got to work with a lot of his patients that night doing some improv exercises. And he observed that he had never seen them light up like that and connect with each other and laugh. And he said, this really worked. You've got to keep doing this. So at the time, I was with a theater company that offered this course, Improv for Parkinson's. And we had a brave group of about 12 improvisers, would-be improvisers, who all have PD, and they jumped in to learn improv. We had 3 workshops, and then we did a showcase for friends and family, and we showed these games that we played. And it was an exhilarating night where all of the troupe members felt seen. They felt like they had an accomplishment that they achieved as a team. And we had a ball. We just had a ball. And they didn't want it to end. So then, of course, COVID hit. And the Parkinson Society got in touch with me and said, can we do improv classes virtually to keep people connected over COVID? And I, like a great improviser, I said, no. No, improv doesn't work online. It doesn't work. You got to be in person. We got to make eye contact, right? And they said, please, will you try? You know, we think this COVID thing is going to stick around. This was like at the start, right? And I said, okay, well, we'll try it. Well, here we are now 2 years later, and simultaneously happening right now, our performance troupe is on season 6, and they're doing a Zoom showcase right now live. So
Wow.
These are folks who have continued on with improv, found their people. And what John says about this work is that it allows people with Parkinson's to cope. You know, like I loved what David Loud said there around a day without Parkinson's is not a day worth, or a day without music is not a worthwhile day. It's not a good day for him, right? And so this idea that art enriches our lives, and in improv we can have these connections, it allows us to cope with this diagnosis that means that your life isn't going to go the way you thought it might. And your symptoms might not be behaving the way that you thought they might today. And so with improv, we say yes to these realities and see what we can create with them. And so that, in a nutshell, is how this work got started and now continues to grow.
Amazing. And Rosemary, you know, you are the, you know, sort of wellness coordinator for Tightrope. What do you see? What do you find that PD participants say about how improv has helped them personally?
Well, the first thing you'll see when you go into an improv for PD class, or even just an open house workshop, is the smiles. And that is so huge. The first thing people will say is it just puts a smile on their face. Another thing that people love to talk about is being in the moment. And that's obviously huge with improv, as we've talked about. Being in the moment, being there with the people that you're with, being listening to what's going on, being really in your circumstance and kind of letting the outside world go away. Dan and I did a workshop last week, and immediately folks who had never tried improv before came in and they were like, my stress is gone. I feel like I'm here. I feel like I'm in it. And it was just so exciting to see. We also talk a lot about thinking on your feet. Improv gets you to be quick. It gets you to be witty. One of our troupe members, Miriam Bram, who writes this wonderful blog. And in her blog, she wrote, it was Improv and Me was one of her blog posts. And she talked about learning to think on her slowed down feet, as she called it, and how that was really helpful in her daily life to start, you know, having this class opportunity to get quicker when she didn't think she could be quicker. And suddenly she was, and she could think quickly on her slowed down feet, as she called it.
Yeah, I know Miriam very well. She's not
Yes.
only a friend, she's a member of our JCC and community. So I've read her blog. We will see if we can put that in the chat for everybody.
Oh, please. Yes.
It's really wonderful. Before we talk, and Dan, you did a study, and I want to bring Alex back and we're going to talk about that. But before we do that, what I'd love to do is actually give people a demonstration and bring on one of somebody I've interviewed before and talked to before, Larry Gifford. He is one of your founding improv performers, And he was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's disease at age 45 in 2017. He launched the podcast When Life Gives You Parkinson's in 2018. And in 2020, he co-founded PD Avengers. After reading the book, and I highly recommend it to everybody, the book is called Ending Parkinson's Disease. In addition to all these accomplishments and a career in broadcasting, Larry began improv after a recommendation by his neurologist, Dr. Jonathan Squires, who happens to be Dan's husband. Right, Larry, come on out.
Hello. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Larry, what did you think when improvisation was recommended to you? Were you like up for it, or
I said,
what
yes, and.
You talk about yes and. Can you tell us about yes and, Larry?
Well, this is about accepting the offer that is given to you and building on it. So you're not competing against each other. You're trying to create something together, which is and you're trying to make your partner look better, and they're trying to make you look better. So the offers they're not meant to put you in a corner, but actually build you up and make everybody else look great. So, and failure is celebrated, which is even better.
How amazing. I once watched an interview with Tina Fey and David Letterman, and she was trying to teach him improv in the yes and he didn't respond with a yes and, he responded with why something wouldn't work, and it sort of kind of killed the moment. Can you talk to us, Dan, about that, and how you need to, like, as Larry was saying, emphasize what's working?
The metaphor that I use for this, Caroline, is a staircase. So at the start of an improv scene, we are at the bottom and we need to get to the second floor. And the way that we do that is by each creating one step in turn. So if you take a ladder and go all the way to the top, you're going to leave me behind. But if each offer builds on the offer before that, then we work in collaboration to get to that second floor together. And that's yes and. Every idea is accepted and then built upon. And when we say accepted, it doesn't mean accepted and agreed with. It means received. In an improv scene, at the very start of improv training, we really drill in, say yes to every offer. But then as we train improvisers and they have internalized that rule, then we look at, you can say no to an offer, but still accept it. Like if someone says, this is a robbery, you might say, no, please don't take my stuff. That's actually a yes, because I'm saying yes to the conceit that you're robbing me.
Yeah, got it.
Right.
The context. Speaking of which, and then I noticed Alex is back. Alex, you and I are going to watch this scene unfold, and then we're going to talk about this research study. Take it away, you guys.
Okay, well, we are going to do an exercise here called scene painting. So in the chat, if Whitney, you could give us a location. Any location would be great. And the three of us are going to create that reality together. So we'll just get any location from you, Whitney. It could be any place, specific or non-specific. Swimming pool is perfect. Okay, so just like a Zoom background, you know how you can blur your background like this? That's what our swimming pool is like right now. It's blurred. And as Rosemary and Larry and I add details, it's going to come into focus, and we're going to create a shared imaginative reality of this swimming pool. Okay, so we have swimming pool, and Rosemary, I'll invite you to give the first detail to bring it into reality.
The swimming pool has green and blue lanes marking them.
There's a sign that says no running, hanging right by the pool.
All the tiles surrounding the pool are in a white border of small inch-sized tiles.
There are dressing rooms on either side. There's a men's dressing room and a women's dressing room.
There is a diving board at the very end of the pool where it's the deepest.
There's a lifeguard tower at the side of the pool where a lifeguard sits very stoically with a whistle around their neck and a life preserver under their arm.
Just next to the lifeguard tower, there's a bin full of pool toys.
There's a mom and a son sitting on the grass and the son is complaining that he's not allowed in the pool because mom says you have to wait 30 minutes after you eat.
There are lawn chairs lined up all along the side of the pool, and they've got various towels that are blue and white strewn across them, showing that some are reserved and some are open.
In the corner of the pool, you see what is one of those like giant inflatable obstacle courses they can put on top of the pool, but it's deflated right now. They're saving it for later.
There's a couple of kids hanging out together in the corner, not in the pool, but they're over the pool, and they keep dropping their snow cone into the pool.
Great. Okay, so there's our created pool for our last action of this game. You'll hear a snippet of audio from that environment that we created. So Rosemary will give one, then Larry, then I will. As if you're overhearing something that's happening at the pool, will be in character or as an object. You're just going to hear a snip of audio from this environment. Rosemary.
Do you think the snow makes the pool colder?
The obstacle course still isn't inflated. I'm gonna kill that.
Hey, you kids, get away from the side with that food. Stay safe. Great. And this is how we applaud on Zoom. We borrow from the sign language community, and then when we've finished our scenes, we get a whole big shimmering screen of hands. So that exercise was so cool because for the longest time, I thought it was an indoor pool. And then Larry said, and the grass and the sun, right? And my reality had to switch because we hadn't stated that. So I had to accept that offer and change it in my mind. And slowly we came to agreement about where exactly we were and how big this pool was and who was there.
Fantastic. Scene. Alex Di Rocco, come on back. I want to know what's going on. Are they doing pattern intelligence association? Are they building? What's happening in the brain?
I think that lots of wonderful things are happening in the brain. I can't really tell you exactly what happened in the brain. We should open those brains. But certainly, you know, that's not exactly an easy thing to do, but, you know, in a metaphorical way. And I think that's really great. You know, I enjoyed the exercise, and I was wondering, you know, and of course we all participate as we were doing this. And it's true, you know, one thing I noticed is you kind of have to redirect your thinking. You know, you imagine the pool, you know, the pool I started imagining was very different than, you know, the pool that was taking shape. And then so this is certainly it's sort of it's a story, it's a collective storytelling that is, I can imagine that beyond the value it can be in, you know, sort of making whatever connection in the brain, there's also an engagement. I could see how the three of you are engaged and sort of playfully interacting and creating the story together, which is another big chapter of you know, Parkinson lives.
Yeah, Alex, we've Dan has been telling us that they've actually done a research study, which they haven't concluded yet. And research studies like these are really important in exploring different ways that different things can help Parkinson's. Why is that? Can you tell us and encourage everybody to really participate in these kind of studies?
Yes, the studies are important in that in medicine, you know, in the world that we inhabit, in order for us to sort of A, provide advice, and B, sort of get the resources to do things, we need to show that what we're doing is not sort of, you know, some strange ideas someone had, but there is value. There is value, there is merit, there is, you know, clear fact. And when you are able to demonstrate in a small group, then you allow people who are, you know, throughout all over the world to go back to that experience and replicate and use it and learn from that experience. An example of this, you know, is something we have discussed many times in our JCC workshops, exercise. 15 years ago, he was ridiculed as a way in which, you just, what are you going to do? Parkinson, just going to get worse. And it's better that people don't exercise so they don't hurt themselves. That was really what was taught in official settings in medical schools. And how did this change? First, common sense, but there were studies after studies, and it started with a small study and then larger studies, and then sort of became obvious that not only that was an important and necessary, but it's the only thing that we know that can delay disease progression, and has transformed the way we think of the disease. So it's important, as the other part of your question, as is important for those who feel like participate in this research. Sometimes research can be tedious. You just want to do the fun. You just want to do the improvisation. That you don't want to do the brain scanning or whatever is asked to do for to demonstrate that this is. But if you can, to put that extra effort, that extra time to fill out a questionnaires or a scale, or spend another few minutes to get examined, that's really important and may have enormous effect for the community at large.
Well, thank you all. We are not going to finish here. We are going to hope to work with Dan and Rosemary, and certainly Larry again. We'd love to bring improv to our program. So stay tuned, everybody. But we're at the end of our show. But of course, everybody knows at the end of a Broadway show, there's always a closing number. And we have someone special tonight to close the show. I want to introduce you to Laura Darrow. And David has worked with Laura extensively. Her career has spanned off-Broadway in such productions as Sweeney Todd, Kid Victory, Encores, The Golden Apple, 10 Ways on a Gun, and Midsummer Night's Dream. She has worked in regional theaters, including roles in Macbeth, Into the Woods, Last 5 Years, Fun Home, and she originated the role of Anna in Disney's Frozen Live. She's on the cast album of Kid Victory, which was produced by Broadway Records. Welcome, Laura. Thank you for coming on to the show. And David, come on back. I know that you and Laura have worked together on several projects. What inspires you about her work?
Laura is one of the finest singing actresses that I've ever known. She came to me as a student, and I started using her to do demo tapes and various projects. And then she won the role, what was that character's name in Kid Victory?
Suze.
Suze, yes. She was Suze in Kid Victory. And John Kander had written this 4-minute sort of aria of this Midwestern girl who was in love with a boy, and she's looking out at all the corn around her, singing this spellbinding song. And Laura was just magnificent in that, and did every workshop and reading of the show, and then got cast in the production and is on the original cast album. And she's just a marvelous giving performer.
Mm-hmm. And Laura, you've said that David is one of your mentors and somebody that you greatly admire. For many people as they age, if they have a diagnosis like Parkinson's, they begin to question, their relevance and if they're really making a difference in someone's life. And he mentioned that he didn't think about teaching as a career was moving along, but now he loves it. He's been your teacher and your mentor. What has he given you? And what is it like to have a chance to work with someone like David, who is so incredibly talented and who also happens to be living with Parkinson's?
I leap at every single chance I can to work with David. I pester him, I text him, and I'm like, please, I must work with you. Because he's brilliant. And I've had the privilege and pleasure of working with him where he's been a music supervisor, a director, a composer, an arranger. I've gotten to peek behind the curtain, and I'm just always so inspired by every insight that he has into storytelling. Just incorporating music into better telling a story. And you know, he said about his doctor, David, you said that your doctor wasn't a dictator, but it was a collaboration. And David always makes you feel that way. He always plants this brilliant idea in your head and makes you think you came up with it, but really he came up with it. but he lets you graciously think that you came up with it. And
Well, we're gonna get to witness a little bit of your collaboration. I actually know how you feel. I feel that way about Dr. Di Rocco. I'm texting him and bothering him all the time to work with him any chance that I get. So I understand that feeling and that process of, especially when someone's busy and you just want a little bit of their time, and every time you spend with them, something opens up, something different changes, and you get a new realization. So I can relate to that very much.
And he has a great sense of humor. I mean, David just makes me laugh every time we work together. And so just his improvisational skills, his creativity is just so inspiring.
This is awesome. Please tell me about what you guys have chosen for tonight, because you have something special for us.
A few days ago, I sent Laura a piano track of a Stephen Sondheim song called "With So Little to Be Sure Of," which in an odd way I thought was very relevant to this discussion. And Laura learned it, and I think he's going to sing it for us now.
Oh, wonderful.
To share
I
that.
think we have a clip, right?
We do.
Sam, go ahead and take it away.
With so little to be sure of, if there's anything at all, if there's anything at all, I'm sure of here and now, and us together, all I'll ever be, I owe you. If there's anything to be, being sure enough of you makes me sure enough of me. Thanks for everything we did, everything that's past, everything that's over too fast. None of it was wasted, all of it will last. Everything that's here and now, and us together. It was marvelous to know you, and it isn't really through. Crazy business, this life we live in. Can't complain about the time we're given, with so little to be sure of in this world. We had a moment, one marvelous moment. Hold me, hold me.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. You have a voice like an angel. David, you're right. Thank you both
extraordinary.
for, yeah, go ahead, David. What were you going to say?
It was so great to see that. I didn't know how it was going to turn out.
Just so everyone knows, David, you're the one that's playing the piano, right?
Yeah.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful. What a show. I'm reminded of this quote from Shakespeare's As You Like It. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, adapting, playing many parts during our daily life and our lifetime, being able to say, as our improvisers taught us, yes, and this is the power that improvising can provide for us in daily living. So while PD may at times, as David said, put up a barrier, we can actively choose to use the tools of improvisation and art and music to get through. I hope you all have had as much fun as I have. Remember, you do not have to face PD alone. To become a part of our Parkinson's wellness community, you can visit our website, mmjccm.org/Parkinson's. And I encourage you to contact Whitney Chapman, who's close by at wchapman@mmjccm.org to schedule an intake appointment and join us. Please check the chat to links to everything that we have shared in our program today. If you want to join a Tightrope Theater and get in on the improvisational game. I want to thank all our guests and bring everybody back for a final bow. Let's see, I know Alex had to leave early, Alex Montaldo, but David's here and Alex Di Rocco's here and Larry and Dan and Rosemary. Oh my gosh, thank you for your inspiring words, your enthusiasm, and most of all, this group, you guys, everybody likes to laugh on this in this call. Broadway Best for Parkinson's is supported by a community grant from the Parkinson's Foundation. So let's give a huge shout out to the Parkinson's Foundation for their support last year and for continuing to grant us another second season. Be sure to join us again for future episodes. David Loud's going to be back to share from his book, Facing the Music. Boyd Gaines will be back to share stories about his journey, and we'll learn just more about some behind the scenes stuff. We also may include a live studio audience and make this an in-person event as well as a virtual event. So if you're interested in being in our live studio audience, please contact Whitney at wchapman@mmjccm.org. A special thank you to the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan, Northwell Health, Jeff Simmons, and Sandra Theris at the Not Gerstein, to our production manager and scriptwriter, Whitney Chapman, and our AV team, Sam Brunswick, Matt Temkin, Jeff Montaigne, and also, most especially, to all of you. We hope it's been helpful, and we hope we see you again.